I recently got to be a guest on the Ever Vigilant Podcast to discuss an article that I recently wrote called A War on Men, King Cyrus's Guide to National Enslavement. And in the article, what I'm trying to do is illustrate how one of the tactics that tyrants have used all throughout history in order to enslave and subjugate nations is the tactic of depriving men of their masculinity. And the illustration that I use to make this point comes from the histories written by Herodotus a couple thousand years ago. And he tells the story about how King Cyrus, king of the Persians, this is the same King Cyrus that's in the Bible. King Cyrus comes riding into a land called Lydia. This is where modern day Turkey is today. And he conquers the Lydian people, and he promotes people from within Lydia to positions of leadership. That way the people that he just conquered can have some buy-in into his new reign. He promotes a guy named Pactius to be in charge of all the wealth and all the gold. And he takes the king, King Croesus, who is renowned for being wealthy and for being wise, and he takes Croesus to be his own personal advisor. So, King Cyrus is down the road on his way to his next military excursion. He's got Croesus in tow, and back in Lydia, he has Pactius in charge of all the gold. It's been a couple weeks. They're out on their way to the next land that they're going to conquer, and a messenger from Lydia comes storming into the camp, and he tells Cyrus, King, this guy Pactius that you put in charge of all the gold, well, he's just taking it all down to the coast, and he's hiring mercenaries to wage an insurgency against you. Cyrus kind of throws his hands up in the air, and he says, I've promoted these people. I let them keep their country. What can I do now except just go back and enslave them all? Well, King Croesus hears him say this. And Croesus is a Lydian, and he loves the Lydian people. And he does not want his people being enslaved. But he knows that if he's going to protect his people from outright enslavement, he has to offer up an alternative to King Cyrus that is as equally drastic as slavery. And so here's the advice that he gives to King Cyrus. He says, O king, what you say is fairly said, yet do not give full vent to your wrath, nor destroy an ancient city that is guiltless alike of former and current misdoings. Forgive the Lydians, but take the following measures to ensure their future loyalty and good conduct. Forbid them to possess weapons of war. Order them to wear tunics under their cloaks and soft slippers on their feet. Make them teach their sons to play the lute and the harp and to tend shops for a living. And then Croesus kind of boils down his advice into this point. This is why he's offering the advice. He says, you will soon see them turning into women instead of men, and they will never again be a source of trouble for you. This article that I wrote isn't to say that men are stronger than women and can do things women can't, or to say that women are stronger than men and can do things that men can't. Men can do things that women can't, and women can do some things that men can't. When they're left exclusively alone, then they're as powerful as they can be individually. But when they come together and they unite and say a marriage, for example, then they're both stronger than they otherwise would have been alone. Now that we're past that, there is a cultural equivalence to the advice that King Croesus gave to King Cyrus here. For example, take away their weapons of war. That is happening proverbially and in all actuality in America with some politicians that we have that try to deprive men and women of their ability to defend themselves. But let's look past that. Let's look at this one thing where King Croesus tells Cyrus, make the men wear soft slippers on their feet. I spent 10 years in the United States Marine Corps infantry between active duty and reserve, and I can tell you from personal experience and with a great deal of authority that I would rather go to combat wearing combat boots than soft slippers on my feet. Because if you're wearing soft slippers on your feet, you're not going to be able to wage an effective fight. You're not going to be able to cover the ground you need to cover in order to accomplish your objective that you need to get to. You're not going to be able to accomplish your mission if you're wearing soft slippers on your feet. It's going to put you at a disadvantage when you're there to fight a battle. And we live in a world today in which our culture is trying to tell men, wear soft slippers on your feet. You need to walk around here like you're stepping on eggshells. You need to be far more sensitive where you step so as not to offend somebody. Moving on, I just want to tell you that I have this article that I would like for you to go check out and read. I talk a little bit more about all the cultural equivalencies here, but I just want to hurry up and wrap this up by telling you what other historians have had to say about the Lydian people since the reign of Cyrus. Thus, from the renowned warriors, I'm reading from other Greek historians, thus from the renowned warriors, the Lydians became the least warlike of men. In fact, they were reduced to being publicans, wandering entertainers, and procurers. These people, formerly so powerful because of their activeness, their intrepid in war, henceforth rendered effeminate by soft living and debauchery, thus lost their ancient virtue. And those whom the habit of battle had made invincible before Cyrus, letting themselves slide into debauchery, were vanquished by idleness and sloth. Herodotus tells us that when King Croesus gave this advice to Cyrus, to tell the men that they can't have their weapons, to tell the men that they have to wear tunics under their cloaks, soft slippers on their feet, that the boys have to learn how to play the lute and the harp and just tend shop, and that's all that they're allowed to do, this effeminization of the men and the boys, King Cyrus, Herodotus says, was pleased to hear this advice. He went back to Lydia and he implemented it, and we find out that henceforth rendered effeminate by soft living and debauchery, thus lost their ancient virtue, and those whom the habit of battle had made invincible before Cyrus. The habit of battle. That's something that our culture is trying to eliminate. It's this trying to eliminate this out of our role as men to be warriors for our families or our communities or for our liberty and our freedom. So go check out this article, www.paulkurtman.com. Give it a read. Feel free to subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it if you'd subscribe so that way you get my content whenever I do send it out. Thanks.